chapter ahead of next season.
So Arizona's been trying to piece back their roster. They're losing some in the portal. Of course, in this day and age, when a coach leaves, that's going to happen. But they had a pretty damn good weekend. Not flawless, but Noah Fifita and McMillan, two of their best players on the roster, announced during a basketball game, along with a lot of players who were there that walked onto the court, that they're coming back. And so a huge possibility of gaining what was almost, a tourniquet because of players that were leaving. But they had a heck of a weekend with those two coming back. Dwayne Aquina, we'll get to them. Dwayne Aquina, who they brought in as a coach, is now going to be the defensive coordinator, according to Jason Shear. No, don't do the other one yet. But how much, just imagine if you're Brennan, what you needed with Fifita and McMillan to stop the bleeding for Arizona's football roster.
Yeah, this is going to help Brent Brennan a lot, be able to tell people, okay, let's see what can happen, you going in here and all of that. So, I absolutely think that, this was the biggest key to their whole, rebuild, I guess, is that you had something to build around and where Brent Brennan wouldn't have to start completely from scratch. Because if you lose Fifita and McMillan, you really are basically starting from scratch on that roster. And you're already going to lose guys to the portal when you have a coaching change anyway. But this enables them to hit the ground running. They had NIL step up and keep these guys. And I don't think Noah Fifita, particularly, at least from what you heard, really wanted to leave anyway. So, I think that it's a huge just win for the Wildcats.
These were their two best players, and these are the two guys that I highlighted every time we talked about Arizona, and that most people would highlight talking about Arizona, and rightfully so. They were their best players, biggest standouts and stars. Now, they had a lot of really good players on defense, and some of them have already gotten offers and are transferring elsewhere, and not to demean those guys at all, but I think when you thought about Arizona football this year, and why they were where they were, these two were right at the top of the list. So, yeah, Fifita's a fantastic young quarterback. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks on paper in the Big 12 next season, and I can only imagine how many phone calls and text messages both of these guys got. The surprising thing is that Washington wasn't the favorite for these guys, that it was apparently Alabama, I guess, was the big threat, and it wasn't even Washington sitting there as the big opportunities knocking at their door. I mean, Washington wanted them. Jedd Fisch wanted to bring his guys, but they didn't even have Washington at the top of their list of where they might have gone had they decided to go elsewhere. So I just found that very interesting. I think a lot of people did over the weekend, that you would have assumed Washington would be the one banging down their door and be the lead favorite, but that didn't seem to be the case. And so a loss for Jedd Fisch there, or maybe not a loss, but a tandem that you would have liked to, I imagine, brought to Seattle with you that you don't get to bring with you. But he'll bring plenty of other players and coaches and whatnot. But that's a huge win for Arizona, no matter who was coming and trying to get both of those guys. To have them as the focal points of this new era with your new head coach and this new jump into a new conference, I think is crucial, and it prevents what would be five-alarm panic in Tucson had both of these guys decided to leave, or even one of them. That would have caused far more worry about the future, but I think having these guys as centerpieces and being such great players is absolutely huge for Arizona.
Now, there was a note by Aaron Torres. We've had Aaron on this show. He covers college football. This is a note that he put up. So Jedd Fisch gave up a Big 12 favorite roster, inherits a depleted Washington headed to the Big 10, and in a year his alma mater, Florida, will open up. Every man should be able to make the decision he wants, but I truly believe this is one he will regret. Arizona All-American again, Fifita, McMillan, also both returning, as we mentioned in the previous tweet. But he's going to get some, and Washington's gaining momentum too. But they've lost a ton. They've hemorrhaged. And so there we are with that with Aaron Torres about what Jedd Fisch will do in Washington. Or maybe regret. I doubt he regrets it because he's getting paid a bunch of money, but did have a really loaded roster coming back at Arizona. Now, Jake Fisher is going to join us tomorrow. He's a former player. We had him on during the time when Arizona was contemplating joining the Big 12. Had a lot of former players from Colorado, et cetera, and Arizona State and Utah. Want to tell all of our Arizona football athletes we're proud as hell. Staying with the university when a coach bails is tough. Former players appreciate everything you've done for our university. We will always remember your sacrifice and commitment. Jake will join us tomorrow to give us more of his take at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of that. I don't know. I think I'm just getting old now. I see it, and I don't really get into the woe is me game as much because I've seen pretty much every single school lose a head coach in this fashion except for the top schools. And so, yeah, it's just part of the deal. I mean, you hear all about the loyalty and all this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm just not surprised Jedd Fisch left, and I don't feel terrible for Arizona outside of just yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry. But, guys, this is the business. This has always been the business. They were never unique. Jedd Fisch was never unique. I'm sorry to rip the mask off all this and pretend it's not all honor code and all this other stuff, but this is college football. This is what happens every single year. So, yeah, I know Arizona fans are hurt, and I understand that, and rightfully so. But, when you give the whole, we trusted you, and it's just well, that's your bad, because I don't trust a single thing a college football head coach says about their future or whatever if they're not already at the top spot. But, yeah, I mean, it's been a really difficult time. They're very fortunate that it's not worse and that you've got a guy like a Noah Fifita or Tetairoa McMillan, amongst others that are going to be back and going to be sitting there leading the charge for Brent Brennan and company. So it could be worse. Obviously could be better. You could be rolling in with Jedd Fisch at the helm and everybody's coming back and you're just rolling in from that Oklahoma Bowl game into the offseason. But, if you're not one of 5 schools, every year this is the fear is that you're going to get poached, and unfortunately it was Arizona's turn, and just at an awful time given what was starting to build there. But they're rallying well. Their feelings will soothe, and now it's all about what Brent Brennan can do with some really talented guys who have elected to stay. So that should be the focus more so than Jedd Fisch and another coach who said things and then went and actually did other things, because that's just a lesson you learn over time watching college football and sports in general.
They won't be the last, and who knows in the next few days. What